Nobody sat you down in high school and said, here's how libido changes after kids, after cancer, after losing your job, and here's how to maintain, playful, connected sex with your partner through all of those things.
Welcome to the Sex After Kids podcast, a place for parents to come and learn together about the sometimes bumpy road back into the saddle of their sex life after adoption, childbirth, or joining a blended family. I am your host, Sofia Ashley, certified sex educator and sex coach, mother and stepmother, and your totally TMI guide to becoming BFFs with your body and initiating easy, connected, and confident, naked, sexy fun times. Here we are, one part science of sex, one part mindfulness magic, and one part straight up real talk to help you find the spark in your relationship and yourself after kids. I'm so glad you're here.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Sex After Kids podcast. Today, we are digging deep into a question I hear regularly, which is, should I see a sex coach or a couples counselor? And what is the difference? So a little background on me, right? Like I have sat on the therapy couch with my partner and done the deep and uncomfortable work of couples counseling. You can check out a whole episode I did on the 6 things I loved to hate about couples counseling. I'll put the link in the show notes. But the real thing is counseling did help me see where I was projecting my stuff, blaming my partner, and getting caught in like really unhelpful patterns. And that awareness changed a lot for us, and I still use a lot of what I learned in couples counseling to this day. And I've never hired a sex coach because, well, I am one. I mean, I guess you could say I did hire a sex coach when I got certified because I had to go through the coaching process myself before I could learn to teach it. So I retract that. I have seen a sex coach. My sex coach was Davey Ward. I saw a tantric sex coach because I believed in the like holistic perspective that it brought to my sexuality being like key to who I am. And the real magic for our sex life has shown up not so much in the counseling skills, which have helped to make our relationship overall better, but have come from the skills that I know as a sex educator and a sex coach. That has opened up the conversations about what we believe about sex, and that actually has us trying and doing new things in the bedroom, not just talking about sex and sexuality in our relationship. So let's start a little bit with like why you would even consider seeing a professional to get support, right? Like a lot of the people who are listening here maybe feel like they've either are the high libido person and they've like done the fancy date nights, they've picked up the chores, they've tried to lighten the mental load, they've tried being a good partner. Or if you're a lower libido partner, you've like explained yourself over and over, hoping your partner will finally understand you're not walking around raging horny all the time. You've asked for them to pick up their fair share. You've read the articles. You've had the late night talks, or maybe you're at the point where you can't even talk about it anymore, but nothing is shifting, right? You're lying in bed at night. The air is thick with awkwardness. Flirting is starting to feel very foreign, and either of you is not really sure how to try anymore. And maybe it's been so long that this is just like what feels normal now. And if that's you, that's not alone. Like a lot of couples end up here cycling through the same conversations and solutions, hoping for this breakthrough that never comes. And I just want you to know, like, from the statistics, like 15% of people who are married haven't had sex in like the last year. So it's very common for frequency to change in a long-term relationship. And that's because nobody sat you down in high school and said, here's how libido changes after kids, after cancer, after losing your job. And here's how to maintain, playful, connected sex with your partner through all of those things. So if you're in this situation, you might be wondering, like, do we really need the help? And the thing for me is that most people think that they're trying a lot to fix their sex life, but really they're just cycling through the same old skills and old patterns. And that's because you don't know what you don't know. So when I talk to people, when I get on a spark session with people, and when I've asked people, what have you tried so far to solve this problem? I'm maybe hearing that people have gone to counseling. I've maybe hearing that they've read a book or listened to a podcast, but I am almost never hearing I've tried this specific strategy and this specific thing. And I'm almost never hearing I bought a program or an app or a whatever. Sometimes I hear that, but most of the time, people have not made any kind of meaningful investment, small or big, into learning a new strategy or tool or approach, which means you're maybe grabbing free stuff off Instagram, which can be helpful, but you're doing things in bits and bobs, not with any kind of sustained, focused effort, because you don't actually know what you're supposed to do. And so you're both just waiting for the libido to come back, waiting for the conditions to change, waiting for the resentment to melt in your relationship, whatever it is that you're waiting for. But waiting is just a surefire way to wait yourself right into a divorce. And that is not what we want, I assume, if we're listening here, right? Some of us are trying to take the pressure off, but we manage it only for about 5 minutes or a couple of days. And then we end up letting that frustration leak out of us and sabotage our efforts before we've even really begun. Or like I said, people feel lost. They just don't even know what to do. And they hope if they ignore it long enough, it will somehow just get fixed, right? We can't see our own blind spots. We don't know what we don't know. And this is why a coach or a counselor is a great option, right? If you find yourself flailing with this issue for long enough, if it's been more than, 3-6 months of you being like, we really need to solve this, we really need to solve this, I would gently invite you that it is time to ask somebody with more expertise and experience than you to offer you some insight and support. Okay? That is my loving encouragement, because a coach or a counselor is going to help you pivot in the moment, learn those hands-on skills, and get out of just talking about your sex life so that you can start doing things differently. You do not have a discipline problem. You do not have a motivation problem, okay? Behavior change is hard, especially around something as sensitive as sex. I know people who keep my website open in their browser for months before they finally send me an email, because it's scary to let somebody in. It's scary to admit that we need help. It's scary to admit we can't do this on our own, but real magic happens when we do. And if you want the fastest path to results, you don't want to wait until you're at a breaking point. You want to get the support right away. It's the shortcut to real change and real relief, right? If you are in a place of struggle, I want you to ask yourself, if you had someone working with you alongside you, how different could your life be 4 months from now? Would you still be considering whether or not you still want to be in this relationship, or would you be happily flirting and having regular sex? That is possible. That is on the table. That is an option if you are willing to admit that you don't know what you don't know and you need some support. So what is the difference then between seeing a couples counselor and seeing a sex coach? So a sex coach is going to be trained specifically in the psychology of sex and the biology of sex, of desire and trauma. And their focus is going to be a little bit more on doing, right? So learning the communication skills, but also learning how to rock a clit and a penis. It's going to be more future oriented, more goal oriented. So more in a place of, we are here and we want to be here. These are the skills we want to learn. Sometimes when I'm talking to people, it's as specific as I want to learn how to squirt, or I want to learn semen retention and how to be multi-orgasmic. And sometimes it's more like we're having sex once a month and we'd like to get to a point where it's a couple times a month, or we'd like to get to a place where both of us are initiating and it's more chill and relaxed, right? So it's more about looking forward to what you want to create and taking the steps necessary, learning the skills necessary to move forward. Couples counselors are amazing more for digging into the past, unpacking those old wounds, especially if there's infidelity and trauma, and helping you see the patterns that you're stuck in as a couple. So the counseling for us helped us to see how stress and our different responses to stress created the resentment in our relationship, which then fueled not wanting to have sex, right? So one can kind of help the other. And the real talk is they are both powerful, and used together is the magic measure. So it kind of depends on where you're at. If there is infidelity, if there is a history of a lot of trauma in one or both of you sexually, if you are really struggling to just get through a day and have feel like a team, then you likely want to start with the couples counseling. If everything in the day-to-day is mostly working and feels pretty good, and you just feel like you can't nail this sex thing, then I would suggest that you need a sex coach, because then it is way more about those specific skills. And the thing with couples counseling is you can see a sex therapist. And like with any professional, we'll talk in a little bit at the end about like how to choose. Just remember that a sex therapist could be someone who has like 1 hour of sexuality courses in and amongst their counseling degree, or it could be someone who did a deep dive and had 30 years of experience on sexuality issues. So you want to bear in mind and ask about, if you're looking for someone to solve sex challenges and you're trying to decide between a sex therapist and a sex coach, you want to know about people's credentials, backgrounds, and experience and approach, so that you can figure out if it's going to work with your goals. Okay. The other note, caveat, reminder, nudge that I want to say here is that a lot of us come to this issue of like finding help for this issue from a place of thinking, if only my partner would just go to therapy and fix their libido, everything would be fine. Or I'm so messed up for wanting sex all the time, maybe I just need to change and be less needy, right? So we can come from a place of like full on self-blame or full on blame of our partner, whether we're high or low libido. And the reality is that neither is true, neither is healthy. Sending your partner off to therapy with the message that they're broken just creates more shame and pressure. And sending your partner off to therapy because they need to put less pressure on you is not really effective either. And so much of my approach now comes from when I was originally working only with women. Women were coming to me, and their motivation for fixing things was they wanted to want sex so that their partner would get off their back, essentially. And I needed to work with them to see that they could want sex for themselves, that sex could be something that they do for themselves with their partner. And so it's really why I take a team-based approach now. And I encourage you, if you're thinking about getting support, yes, you might individually need to work on issues. And I have a whole episode called Us Against the Problem, which I'll link in the show notes. Yes, I might have deep-rooted trauma around sexualized assault. That is not my partner's to fix. However, if I go to therapy and I'm working on that on my own, there are still things that my partner can do to help me and to help me fast track that solution instead of go fix yourself and come back repaired. So when we treat it as a team approach, when we treat it as we are two humans, we're trying to figure out how to make love to each other and whatever baggage and stuff we've got, we will have better results. And sometimes we need to start this work on our own. And as we shift, our partner will buy into the work and join us. And sometimes we're able to start together and start from that team-based place of neither of us is broken. We just haven't learned the right skills. So if you are looking at a sex coach or a sex therapist, what do you want to look for? Well, you want to make sure they are certified and trained, of course. Ask about their credentials, ask about their background, ask about if they're a counselor or a therapist, did they do 1 hour of sexuality training or did they do like a whole degree focused on human sexuality? Make sure you understand if you're working with someone around tantra and like energy in the erotic arts, make sure that they know their lineage and they can tell you where they have learned these practices and what their training looked like. That's pretty important. The other piece is to make sure that you're working with somebody who is trauma informed. So they should be able to understand nervous system, safety, boundaries, triggers, what it looks like to live through sexualized assault, or just this society where there's shame around sex. Ethics is also really important. So if you are doing work with somebody who is doing somatic work, if you're working in Tantra or anything, you just want to know they have a strong code of ethics, a strong code of professionalism. Your sex therapist or sex coach should never try to sleep with you, nor should you try to sleep with them. And you should not have a relationship outside of your professional relationship. And if you've got the ick, like trust that and listen to that. Especially in the Tantra world, unfortunately, there's a lot of not so great folks. And so you need to choose kind of at your discretion. So understand what are the ethical standards that this person stands by. What certifications that they have. And along that line as well, we want to have a lot of transparency. So some sex coaches do work hands-on with people. There's somatic sex education and sex support where people might literally be doing healing work on a vagina, on a penis. You might be getting naked in sessions, all of that fun stuff. Those modalities are lovely and amazing. Be clear that you know that that's what you're getting into, if that's what you are getting into. Other people like myself, I teach using anatomical models, and then I send you home to do the work, and I'm there to help you and support you, but we're not getting naked. I'm not touching any bodies. That is my way of teaching and my approach. So just make sure you fully understand what you're signing up for. There should be a coaching agreement. There should be strong boundaries from your coach about what that all looks like. And last but not least, we want to trust our gut, right? So you should feel safe. Your partner should feel safe. You should feel seen and respected, and know that once you choose somebody, you can always change your mind, and it might take more than one try to get the right fit. That is okay. So which is right for you, right? If you want to do things differently, if you want to try new skills, if you want to practice new ways of connecting, then you want to see a sex coach. And if you need a safe space to unpack old wounds, get to the root of patterns, or heal together, then I think couples counseling is gold. And if you're not sure, then you don't have to choose. Many couples do both at different points, or they do both simultaneously, and they get the best of both worlds. Whatever you decide, you deserve support that is ethical, trauma-informed, and truly helps you move forward, not just circle the same old struggles on repeat. So I, of course, am a sex coach. And if you are even the slightest bit curious about what I could do for you and how we could work together, you can book a free Spark session. These are pressure-free. I'm not twisting your arm. I'm just here to talk through the issues that you're dealing with, to talk through the goals and the vision of what you want to create, and to help you see the fastest way from A to B. Thank you for being here, my friends. I am rooting for you, and I will catch you soon.
This is the part where we do the end bit, right? My friends, let's take a mindfulness minute here. Take a deep breath in. Open that mouth and let out a big, deep, full body sigh. Voila. Your nervous system thanks you. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope that your head and your heart have something new to consider, something new to talk about, and something new to try. No husbands were harmed in the making of this podcast, and a big thank you to my husband for his help and original music composition. Love you, babe. This podcast was recorded on the traditional territories of the Kwanlin First Nation and Tan-Quechan Council in Whitehorse, Yukon. We acknowledge and are grateful to the original stewards of this land where we get to play, live, and raise our children. You can catch me on the Instagram at the Happy V Project for tips, tools, and anecdotes. And you can also join the weekly-ish newsletter for dispatches from my bedroom and my brain. Catch you next time.